welcome to the Surface setup. Now we're going to be going over the console overview. There's three components basically to the Surface. Obviously the hardware portion of the console, as well as screen 1 and screen 2. Okay, let's take a look at the console. Here on the left side, this is going to be all of our inputs to the console. Just like any other console, everything, all your controls are right here, easy to get to. So at the top of the console, we can bring that up here. This will be controlling our head amp gain. If we just switch that over, this is our analog gain to the I/O boxes on the stage or at front of house or wherever. We could swap that back over and then have the digital trim. Just like every other console. We got a phantom power button, phase button. Below that, we have the direct outs to mute anything that we might be recording or sending some signal anywhere. Below that, we have the soft keys here for bringing up the compressor. So that way, the minute you press it, it's going to bring it right to the screen. This button would bring the comp and the gate directly in and out of the circuit. Below that section is our insert, whether it be a hardware insert or one of the effects inside the console. We can specifically patch things in like de-essers or smart dynamics. Below that's the EQ section. We got the 4 bands, so if we specifically want to get directly to, say, the high mid, we can easily bring that up. The EQ button here will bring the EQ in and out of the circuit. Below that, this is going to be where we can control our mix, which is aux sends, matrices, or anything like that. And I'll get into that once we get to the center section a little bit more. But we would be able, if we had, say, aux 7 and we wanted to turn that on or, assign it to be pre-fader, we can AFL it and listen to it and see what's going on there. Below that is our master assignment, the stereo, the mix bus, or, if we want to send it to the mono bus. Below that, as you would expect to find, you have your pan knob. Then you have the button here to actually select the channel to bring everything onto the screen to control and make any changes in parameters. And then the mute and the solo buttons, and then finally the fader. Next, we're going to move over to the center section here, okay? In the middle, we have 24 buttons, okay? Because of the amount of aux sends, we have 72 on this desk. We could easily bank through in 3 pages. So right now we have, on the screen is aux 25 to 48. If we wanted to go to 1 to 24, it's simply pressing and navigating. If we want to go to 49 to 72, we could do that. And then finally, matrix 1 to 24. It's all right here. Everything right here is in front of you. You have your mute, you have your solo, okay? You can bring the levels to these, and by bringing them down to faders, by pressing this button, and now the VCAs go away, and as you see, all the buttons here are associated to those groups, okay? Whether it be the matrices or aux sends, we can now have everything right down here and control those levels without leaving the center section, the sweet spot. To the far left of that, these are all the input controls. Up here at the top, we have all of our safes for automation. We'll be getting into automation in greater detail in a later video. Okay, below that is basically like the top section of the channel strip. It's where you're gonna have your filters, your high and your low pass filters. And we have all of our controls below that for our gate and our compressors, the filter, the EQ, the panning, and the master assignments. Then we can easily scroll through the channels. Okay, to the right of that are all the controls of the 8, aux sends or the matrices. Everything is laid out. You have your 8 encoder knobs here, your mix on or off, pre-fader. Okay, you can bank down individually by channel, or you can go in groups of 8 and scroll through, which is great for navigating all of the aux sends and matrices on this console. So it's very easy to get around this desk. Below that, we have our pop groups here, 1 through 8, as well as our VCA assignments, 1 through 10, and those associated with the faders here. We'll be getting into those in more detail later on. Before I move over to the next section, we have some advanced navigation options down here. Since we have all these aux sends, if we wanted to flip easily into fader flip mode, we just simply press this, select the aux send that we want, and now the console's in fader flip mode. And you will notice on the console overview page that the colors are changing to represent all the different sends. okay, and let you know that you actually are in fader flip mode. If you're using one of the aux ends for any of the onboard effects, if you had this button pressed in and you selected a button, one of the the effects that's actually associated with that aux end will pop up on the screen, and then you have easy control to go ahead and do that. Same with the graphic EQ. So if you were to select any of the outputs, whether it be the masters or any matrix outputs, if there's a graphic EQ associated with that, that would bring the graphic EQ right down here to your VCAs, and you could bank through all the graphic EQs and make any changes that you need to make. Now, to the right of the console is the master section, okay? We have our left and right, as well as our mono bus, the touch buttons to actually activate the channels, and it'll bring it up on the screen there. Your mutes, your EQs, your dynamics. Above that, we have an assignable control section. Above that, we have all the masters that'll show signal leaving the console, as well as going into the monitor buses, okay? As well as if you were in surround sound mode, you would have the left, right, center, the LFE, everything right there to be able to monitor. We have a solo in place button, which basically does hard mutes. So if you were to solo a channel, everything else cuts off and you're only gonna be hearing that. So we put a nice little protective cover over the top so you don't actually press that. Below that, we got the tap tempo there, as you see. It's flashing continuously. Once we get into the preferences, I'll show you how to set that up. And then this is the changeover for the A and B speakers. Very simple there. Below that's a monitor section, additional. These are for listening for the headphones or having amps, having speakers connected on the back of the Surface. Okay, we have an oscillator that's built in. We can do pink noise or 1K or sweep through the frequencies internally, externally. We have our talk groups, okay, mutes for our surround stuff, internal talk systems, and then adjusting levels. I'm just kind of glancing over a lot of this stuff because a lot of these things we're not going to be going too deeply in, and they're pretty common on most mixing consoles. And below that, we have how the solo section is going to be if we want to have it set to PFL. Okay, so now we're hearing everything in pre-fader whenever we engage the solo button. This add button down here will allow you to select more than one, as opposed to every time you just hit a solo, it'll just cancel out your other solo. So however you want to use the desk is the best for you. The source for A and B, it just basically is saying, hey, what do I want to hear on this one or that one? You could have the stereo mix, the mono, whatever you want right there. And then below that, that's allowing for the swapping over of listening to the surround sounds. The console has a built-in KVM switch. As you see with my external computers, I'm able to connect that by pressing the button here. It'll bring it directly onto the screen, and then the trackball and the mouse and keyboard will work everything on the console right in here. I don't have to worry about having an external screen. Once again, above that, we have another 8 encoders here for our auxes, as well as another overview for our input channels to control our area B. Okay, below that, this is our mute groups. We have 8 on this console, and we'll be going into how to assign and set those up. And then we have our automation controls. We have our store and all the controls that would be associated to using snapshots and recalling any of the automation and navigating around. And then we have our trackballs here to control each of the monitors. This will be for the left side, and this will be for the right. We have some quick navigating buttons here to allow us to get to most commonly used screens on the console, like our automation and filing. We can just easily get in and out, getting to the effects engines or the graphics, the patching, the metering screen, ins and out, labeling, our preference tabs, and the VCA assignable controls. So it allows us to get around the desk really, really quick and easy. Next then, again, is our area B, where we have 4 more dedicated input channels, where I like to keep my priority, which is my vocals, always here. So if I ever needed to get to any of these 4 important channels, any of the parameters I can immediately get to, which is completely independent than what's going on the left side of the console. Now, before we move on to the console screens, we're going to go here. There's 2 keypads. Because of the high channels counts that this console allows you to do, navigating the console might be difficult, but Midas went and made it really, really easy. So by simply pressing any of the numbers, you will notice that below that, there's banks of 12. So if I wanted to get the channels 13 to 24, I just simply press this, 13 to 24 shows up. Okay, that'll go all the way up to 144. Below that, we have the extend button. Basically what this does, if I go ahead and press this, it's gonna now make all of the faders show up in sequential order. Okay, so we had 13 to 24 here, now it's picking up 25 to 34, continuing on 35 to 38 on the right side of the console. So a great feature to get to all of your inputs right away. So very, very easy to navigate this console. Now let's look at the screens. On the left side here, we have the console overview for this section. What you're seeing on the screen there up on top is all of the inputs that are selected. So as you see, if I navigate through, all those channels are going to represent. On top right now is the gain trim, okay? If I press the gain swap button, and we have nothing assigned there, so let me bring you over to channels 1 through 12. So there's the analog head amps right there. So you're seeing that there's some gain on those. So if you were to go ahead and touch these, you would see that they display on the screen. If we swap this back, once we have our analog gain set and we want to make a trim, we could do so with the digital trim. Okay, below that is always going to show you what aux group is selected. Right now it's set to aux 63, so it's showing us the on status and the off status, as well as the pre and the post fader. Below that's the pan knob, so it's giving us quick visual information on the status of the channels. Below that, we have the 24 fader, virtual faders on the screen that's going to show us the aux send levels. So as we bank through, right now we're in matrix 1 to 24, so you can see the levels going on. So a lot of good visual information here right on the screen, okay? Right side of the console is the console overview. This is showing all of our meters. Okay, the top left here, we have aux returns 1 to 24. Okay, to the right of that is matrix 1 through 24. Then we have our master controls. Below that, that whole row is 1 to 72 of all of our aux sends. And then below that, we have 2 rows of all of our inputs. So we can visually see all the ins and outs that's going on with this console at any given time, and it's easy to see that for visual information. Okay, back to when we were in fader flip. As I said, you notice that the flip button has engaged and the colors on the console are changing to give you visual information to say, hey, just a reminder, you're in fader flip mode, so if you need to make a change to any of the faders, that you are in that configuration. Okay, and that's it for the console overview.